welcome to a very special dialogue dedicated to a unique project. I'm saying this to everyone from everywhere, but particularly to our viewers from Romania and Sweden, since the subject matter, the atmosphere, and the tone of our conversation will be connected with these two different countries. I take the opportunity to thank the Romanian Cultural Institute for the occasion to have a conversation about the project called Hektomeron, and also its Swedish branch in Stockholm, the wonderful team who have managed to organize this online event. My name is Octavian Saiu. I am a theater critic, and I would say above everything, I am a spectator. I'm somebody who enjoys theater in all shapes and forms, even if it is online. So from this point of view, I'd like to share very, very briefly a few thoughts about Hektomeron, which is a timely initiative that belongs to the National Theatre of Craiova, and it addresses the challenges of our time, going back to the past of human culture that happened. And I think this is the essential dichotomy for all of us. We can go back, we can try to pick up from where we left when the pandemic started, or we can choose to go forward with everything that it has brought about. And I think this project is paradoxical and powerful in that respect. So I am very, very pleased to be joined in this conversation by four artists whom I'm going to introduce very, very briefly. I'm talking about Dasha Nikiforova, who is from Sweden and who represents Sweden in the impressive constellation of Hektomeron, which is bringing together 100 directors from 100 different countries. Of course, Romania had to have its own representative, and who else would be better suited for that than Radu Afrim, who by many, many accounts is the most prominent artist of his generation in Romanian theatre. I am also going to be introducing two actors who are involved in different capacities in this project. Albert Costea is a protagonist of one of the episodes, and Luiza Stănescu is an actress living in Sweden, being very closely attuned to everything that is happening in Swedish theatre today, but also acting as a cultural mediator who has had a substantial contribution to the Swedish success of this story. And because it is exclusively, in a sense, about storytelling, about a different manner, about a different way to tell a story in theatre through the online medium, I'm going to start by asking Dasha to share some thoughts about how she personally responded to this challenge and how things happened in terms of her own episode, the episode that she directed for Hektomeron. So Dasha, welcome, and please share some thoughts about your own experience of being involved in this great cultural endeavor called Hektomeron.
Thank you. Well, I think it's a real challenge to embrace a new form, that the theater is so much here and now, and that is challenging to do that in front of a screen. So how does the audience know that it's actually happening now, that it's, you know, not recorded? And yeah, that is I think a big question that we have been dealing with. We just started yesterday, the first rehearsal day, so we just tried out a few bits, but I think it's really fun, and you have to be like really creative of this, you know, working in this form because it's so new. Like, you know, you don't feel the energy in one way, so you have to work with other, you know, other perspectives, and yeah, so there is a lot of challenge, I think, in this, but it's a fun challenge. I think it's about also that we are working to try new methods for the theater. So it's something. It's really interesting, I think.
But Dasha, how did you establish common ground with people far away from you physically that are so close in spirit? How did you start talking to them about your ideas, about what you want them to do as part of this episode?
Well, we started like talking, like I think you, as an artist, that's how you start with a talk, with ideas. And then we've done it also together, that we had like, what would you like to do in this format? And because I think, yes, there's a story to be told, but I'm still, me and Georgia are artists, so there's so many ways to do it. You can dance it, you can you can sing it, you can talk it. So I think so we're dealing a lot with those ideas. So yeah. So we started like with a conversation, and then we put everything down, on a Google Doc, and like, this is the ideas, and so we tried out some of them and keep on. So this is like a devised in one way project. So we're like improvising parts of the script, even if we have the story. So it's collaborating really together.
I like this idea of collaborating together and of starting with a conversation, because everything meaningful in theater starts with a conversation. And I'm going to be asking Georgia about his perspective on this starting conversation, which I'm sure is very, very interesting to find out more about. But before that, I'm going to bring Radu into the conversation, staying on the director's territory. So Radu, what about your own experience after so many performances done live, meant to be experienced, savored live by the audience? All of a sudden, everything started to be online, and you were attracted into this mega project called Hektomeron. How did you first react when you heard about it, and how did it actually happen for you?
For me, it will be only in April, with some actor from Chisinau, from Moldavia, because it has to be international, and and I knew a very good actor from Moldavia, who has a lot of humor. Well, I suppose it will be starting with chatting, with speaking, even if it's an erotical project, erotic story. Well, it's like actually on Tinder, we speak and then we do other things. I suppose the most paradoxical thing is that we are dealing with Boccaccio novels, which which speaks about the joy of living, the joy of having love, the joy of laughing during the pandemics, let's say that. So it's very paradoxical. Well, we must keep this distance, working on screen, working on cyber stuff like this, and this is the big challenge for all of them, because as you know, I prefer to do very physical theater, full of contact, full of relation between actors, even sometimes very close, the bodies being very close. And the question is, how much are we allowed to transform these stories? Boccaccio's stories, which deals with joy of living, making love, in something very, very political or ideological or stuff like that. And it's very important to see how some of the directors just did that, just had the courage to do that, to translate this joy of living, joy of making love into some question, big question of our humanity of this moment. Because everybody saw, for example, Pasolini's production, Pasolini's movies, which is not, I suppose, something much more than the illustration, the good illustration of those stories. Okay, at the end, he puts a big question, religion, or we know he was a big socialist. So I think this is a big thing, one of the biggest things that we could translate. We can translate those stories, those very erotic stories, actually, into something political. If you want to say that, I'm not sure I will do that. I'm not sure I will be able to do that, for example. But actually, we should ask, what can we do if we do not do that? If we exclude politics, if we not are, I mean, what rest, for example, what list? So for me, it will be, I don't know. I suppose difficult to do that and to do something with meanings, because I must confess that some years ago I wanted to do these stories on stage, to do Boccaccio's stories on stage, and I wanted also to do Chaucer's stories, for example, on stage, and being provocative, being as you should be when you do that in Romania. And I'm thinking what it will be. I have still 2 months to thinking,
Radu, I'm very pleased to hear that you intended in the past to do an adaptation of Boccaccio's Decameron for the stage. And I think from that, with all the degree of physicality involved to what you're going to be doing for an online project, the difference is tremendous. But you will have to adapt, and you have adapted. So I would like to insist upon this notion of online theatre. What are your thoughts on this from the point of view of somebody who always insists upon the human, direct, immediate interaction between actors, but also upon something that brings the actors and the audience together in a very intimate way?
Yeah, I've already done it in Târgu Mureș. I had a project called the Grand Hotel Retro Bird, Retro Mother. It was live streaming. It was in the audience. It was made. It was mean for cyber or only for online, and I didn't have any problem because the action would happen in a big building, and it was a movie actually. So it's another. I mean, it's totally different. It's totally different, and I suppose any artist can and it's can how can I say adapt. You adapt or die. I'm sure that we are. It's a necessity for these days to adapt. If tomorrow we will be back at what we knew, it's another point of view. But for the moment, we should adapt without speaking so much, without making any opposition, as much as we can. I mean, I suppose every theater director wanted to do as a movie, for example. So it's almost the same thing, excluding the contact, of course. But you know, it's. I mean, well, that comes a time when you want to see a single actor on the stage, staying, speaking, looking at you, as well as he will be in his own room, his you know. So it's not hard. It's not difficult. It's a pleasure and it's a game. Actually, you should not transform that into something painful or something different or something you know not interesting at all. I mean, all my life I could adapt without making so much compromises, let's say that. So my idea about these times, about the online theater, if it's good, if it's quality, if it's not bad, for me, not as an audience, but as artist, is very good. I would say I wouldn't look so much on others' online production on this period. I'm not a good audience, even not for real theater, for theater, live theater. But I knew a lot of people who paid for much, who was very happy, very full of joy to see actors, to see even monologues online. If it can transmit emotion or some sense, you know.
It's an interesting confession, the one that you've just made, Radu, that you don't really enjoy watching theatre in a kind of proper context, let alone in an online setting. But I think it says something about your attitude towards theatricality, which is something that you take seriously as an artist to such a great degree that you cannot see it from the other point of view, in a sense. But I was listening to you and I was reminded of a statement made by Ostermeyer, and I've been quoting him ever since he told me that in a conversation like this one. He said, to do online theater is as if two lovers are all of a sudden far away from one another. They cannot touch, they cannot kiss, they cannot make love, but at least they can see each other and they can have the illusion, at least, that they are together. Now, unlike Romania or Germany for that matter, Sweden hasn't had so many disruptions of life in general and of theatrical life in particular. And I like to ask Luiza, as somebody who is part of that social and theatrical texture of Sweden at the moment, to tell us a few interesting details from her own experience being over there and working for a theater in Stockholm.
I'm actually working for a theater in Linköping, which is a town 2 hours away from Stockholm.
A very pretty, quaint town that I visited, I remember, in 2007. And it's got a beautiful castle and a very nice atmosphere indeed.
Yeah, the theater is called Octavian. Maybe you've seen it. It's the state theater here in town. And I've been working here for 6 years. I know that the media has said that Sweden hasn't taken so much precautions about Corona, but I can tell you that even here the theater has been affected very much. Maybe not from the start, the first 6 months. I remember that I was on tour last year in March when Corona came. We had a tour in the whole county with a performance, and when the Corona news came, we said that, okay, we will take a break for a week or so until we figure out what this is. And then from 2 weeks, it became 2 months. And we had to stop playing the performance. Then we had the summer, things were looking better. And in the autumn, we started rehearsing again. And our purpose was always to play the performance. And at that time in Romania, the performances weren't played at all anymore. So there was a slight difference in the ambitions we had, and we thought that we would be able to play the performances, but we actually didn't. I played 8 performances, and then everything got cancelled again because of Corona. And the next project I was part in, that started in January, even the ambition of playing it live disappeared. So we never had as an ambition to meet an audience. We are doing, we changed the project, so it became like a fusion between theater and movie, and we are filming it and making it available on link for the audience. And I don't know how the situation will be in the autumn again, when we will start rehearsing again. Yeah, so I would say that the situation hasn't been very different here either. We have had a lot of online performances, and the theaters are trying their best to find ways to keep an open communication between them and the public, and stay close until we're able to play performances again.
As I was under the impression that you were based in Stockholm and working for a theatre in Stockholm, I'm going to ask you a question about the capital city of Sweden all the same, because I would like to know, and I'm sure everybody watching us would like to know more about the way in which the great theatre institutions of that prestigious, important theatrical movement of Sweden have adapted, to borrow Radu's term, which I think is indeed a key one for everything that is happening. What about Dramaten? What about other theatres in Stockholm? What do their programs look like right now?
It's the same all over Sweden, I would say. And Dasha, you can hop in and help me if you come with other details. But I could say that all the theaters in Sweden have been trying to make performances available online. I have not seen theaters that play the performances live, like I've seen in Romania, like you play the performance and you stream it live while happening. It has been more like, this is a performance we played last year, and this is the filmed version of it, and you can go in on this link and see it. And then they have been doing other small projects besides theater performances, like we're doing this TV series Behind the Stage. We are filming the actors. We're telling you about more about how the theater works. We're introducing you to our collaborators, stuff like that.
I think that's something that's coming up. I mean, this live theater online. I worked in the fourth theater in Västerås. So it's 1 hour from Stockholm, and they're now doing a performances premiere on 4th March that they are doing an online show, but it's live. So they are rehearsing it for being a whole live production. So I think that's also like changing, but yes, I do agree. There's many theater that they even have like a recorded version of that play, so they show it. You can go to like any theater's website and find an online show, I think, in the whole Sweden. So
yeah, but my theater, we even did the filming of the performance, especially for this Corona situation, because usually the quality of a filmed material of the performance that's supposed just to be for the archive. So we remember what we did for 10 years ago. It's not supposed to go to an audience. It's not supposed to meet the public. So then the quality is not that good, or we don't want to present that to the public. So we did take the performances again and rehearse them just to be able to film them. So we have better quality.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think that's a very important aspect that Luiza has touched upon, because it is not only about turning something live into something that is meant for the online spectator. It's about creating an organic form of communication and communion with that spectator. And indeed, what we call rather loosely online theater can range from these very rudimentary recordings to something that is conceived and performed for this medium. And I'm going to bring Georgia into the conversation now as an actor, as somebody who has always sought to reinvent himself and be a performer and create pieces that are original. How do you feel about everything that is happening with theater today, and about specifically your role in this great multinational, international, transnational project called Hektomeron?
I think that from the very beginning, I felt very inspired about the new situation in which we had to start creating. First of all, it was a coping situation, but in a very short period, we found out this courage of actually going to experiment. And as an actor working for a state-funded theater in Romania with a fixed contract, I think that during the last years, I missed this opportunity of experiment within the theater. And I think that we now gained more relaxation towards new ways of working and of collaborating in not creating in a normal way of doing things in a theater. And I think that this is one of the most important aspects that at least we in Craiova accomplished for this period. I think it's on the other side, talking about, especially for of Hektomeron, I think it's very nice of doing this kind of work and of not doing fast theater, although it could be like a fast theater, but not in a way of rushing things, but in a way of trying to be as accurate as possible, because we know that we are having like this kind of, we can have the chance of having this kind of artistic affairs between two creators, one director and one actor there, and to try to tell these stories in a very personal way. Now working with Dasha, and we, as we said, we talked about how we want to tell the story, and because we both are interested in this kind of way of performative way of doing things, we want to find a balance between Boccaccio's story and our stories about how we dealt with this period, about how we are here, what interests us today, and of course, yes, to try to find this way of bridges between us. And as I already experimented with Dasha Nikiforova, first episode I made, we can. It's very emotional actually to work on one-on-one on this experience and bringing our lives there together, because it's another thing that we discovered now of working from home, and this way of mixing the spaces of private and of public, of choosing what to show on the camera and so on. It's something that we experiment, and we are in the middle of this process. Actually, we don't jump to the conclusions, but it's obvious for me, starting from your question, that yes, it's almost very complicated to go back to what happened before. It's already 1 year from the moment when everything changed, and I don't think that even if we will be again in that moment as we knew it before, but I think that we really have to trust in doing this kind of detour of trying an experiment with all these mediums, with everything that came here, with all this digitality thing, maybe to go again on this one actor, one director, as Peter Brook said. This whole perspective of digitality, I think that can actually supplement and enrich actually the spaces and the relationship between us, the creators, and then of the audiences, who is again a very new and interesting subject to approach in again in the frame of this at least of this Hektomeron project, because I think that what is doing it is creating a new kind of audience of that are engaged into this kind of stories, because maybe people actually watch day by day and evening by evening these episodes of creating the whole story that we will have eventually at 100 days and 100 directors. So I think it's a very interesting way of doing this kind of theater series, maybe. So we don't have a product like a series like for Netflix. Will be very interesting to see how people and friends and people from
is most exciting to look at fast theater. It's something that I've heard before, and that is a genuine threat that we have to be aware of, that of turning theater into an experience that is so accessible that asks you to take our soul to that moment when the responsibility was on your shoulders to kick off start this project, to begin this series, which is not fast because it's actually very long, 100 days, 100 episodes, 100 stories. What were you thinking about? How were you feeling about that challenge? And how did you manage to overcome all these obstacles at the beginning?
For me, well, it was Vlad Răgulescu, the artistic director of the theater, who came up with this idea. The challenge was that everything happened very fast, because he has the idea, and it was in November, and he started to tell us and to check his idea among the actors. And we said, okay, it's crazy, we won't be able to do this. Oh, well, let's try. But how will we find those directors? Do we have the resources to make this? And I think that I admire a lot his courage of thinking these things in a big in a big way. And well, for me, I'm going to work for 3 episodes or maximum 4 episodes, as we are an ensemble of 32, 33 actors. So each one of us will work with 3 or 4 directors. Well, it's for somebody who had a little bit of experience of playing with the camera and so on. So that wasn't this wasn't the thing that was very complicated to see. But then in working in this very effective way and of choosing how to tell the story and how to deal with this, that was interesting. And this is, I think that it changes with, I think that with every director that I'm going to collaborate. Working with Jascha Cațeli from Ljubljana, he had this idea that he had to go with the flow. So we have 8 days to do that, 5 days working from home and 3 days on the setup, on the actual setup there. And he said, I'm going with the flow. I just have an intuition about what I want to extract from that story. It was just a feeling. And he thought about just bringing one moment, 1 second there, and developing into the 40 minutes moment. So he just catched up just a glance of that, an impression. And he said that you have to, in such a short time, you have just to go with your intuition and follow that. And because you don't have so much time to adapt, you don't have so much time to change. Now with Dasha, we have another approach. We are improvising. We started from sharing our diaries, for example. We just wrote, each one of us wrote what happened to us in the last week, for example, and seeing how our lives are in so different places and so different countries, and what's happening meanwhile with us. So what our lives are there, because we need this kind of human approach about seeing who we are, even if we cannot touch, if you cannot see each other face to face, and then to extract the idea of what's the story we have to work on is about, and we extract one word and we said, yes, let's go with that, and let's see how we can break this into pieces. But on the other side is very interesting on how we can PR people know very well about, and they deal with this kind of people now for new audiences with our attention span, is that you have to have a video project, that a video teaser, and if you are losing the attention of the audience you have to catch it from 5 to 10 seconds. So you have to be there, because otherwise people will swipe, will scroll down. And we are thinking about this way of catching the attention and of keeping it for a number of minutes there. And these are also aspects that we're thinking and we are considering how we can catch the attention, because it's so much material and so much digital video there, and how we can, without conquering with an audiovisual product, but how we can find our new way of dealing with these kind of mediums and adapt to that. And I think I'm very positive, and I'm very happy to be not only a witness to this process, but also a participant into this.
I am very, very pleased to be a witness, because that is the mission of The Spectator. And from this perspective, I like to say that I'm fascinated by what you are all sharing with us today in terms of something that is right at the core of Boccaccio's writing and must translate in theatrical terms. And that is the notion of storytelling, which can be sometimes concentrated in one word, or it can simply overflow in pages and pages of text. And because Georgia shared this notion of something that develops as a diary, I'm going to ask Dasha about her method, about this practice of encouraging the actor that she works with to dip into their own daily experiences in order to find something that then can be presented theatrically. So tell us about this idea, which I think intrigues all of us.
Well, thank you for the question. I mean, as a person, you know, we can only start from ourselves, and I don't actually have a method. That's my method. Like going with what I feel is important now. And I think it is a lot of things going on with us being locked down. So this was a way to find out like what's going on. You know, where are you? Where am I? We're doing this together. Because I think the context is very important. In, you know, Decameron, it was written such a long time ago, and I don't think that you can just do it. I mean, you can, of course, but it's not my taste of just doing it as it is. So I wanted to find something that's what's you know, what's burning now. And of course, Corona is burning, and like, how does it infect on us? This, you know, how do we feel emotionally? Can we bring that emotion on the stage to just make a comment? You know, this is how it is being alive now. I mean, theater is so much of it for me. Like, how is it to be a human being? And so this is how it started. And I've actually never done this before, but I thought, why not? You know, also to get, you know, I told you about this before, that how can you come closer? Because in one way we're in completely different countries and different cultures, and we don't have that time. Usually you have, like, you know, I don't know, the first 2-3 weeks is just like a romance in the beginning of the rehearsal, and now you don't have that. So how can we get to know each other quickly, you know, yeah, deeper, as you said.
I like that idea of digging deeper and deeper, because in a sense it is something that can happen despite all distances and barriers in an online setting. And with this in mind, Radu, how will you face this challenge? Because your method, to use the same word again, really means being close to the actor, trying to understand them and to earn their trust. Is it possible for a process that takes place online?
Yeah, is it possible with long discussions, with trust, with a big trust between me and actor? Because what I obtain in the normal way, I mean, very psychological stuff and very, very big confidence in the actor, for the actor in herself. It's, I mean, it's disturbed in a way online, but with I repeat, with a big trust and with what I know from so many years of experience, it's not impossible. I know it's not impossible, but I'm not sure I will look for the same result as in a normal theater. Another form of expression is required in online. I mean, it's not the same Stanislavskian way of saying things or working with emotion. It's required in online. I mean, the things should be much more dynamics, much more visual, much more different. I mean, the sincerity, it's not enough for the online. The classic sincerity, it's not enough for online, for me, for my part. I don't think, I don't want to say we should do video clips. I don't want to say that. But something organic must be changed. And this is I mean, it's up to us to find together what is it. I mean, me as director, we should work with the actor to find together what is the point, what is this, what are the solution. But I'm just talking. I just suppose it could be possible because I didn't try for the moment. And George said he cannot believe we can go back to what we did. Last year. I'm not quite sure about that. I worked in a classic way all that year. During the pandemics, I worked 4 performances on theater. The theater were closed for the audience, but I worked with actors. Even in Craiova, I made a big production with a lot of actors on stage. I'm not sure at all we cannot go back to what we know about the theater in the past. So I'm sure there is place for everything. There is place for online, there is place for online with live performances, and there is place for live performances without audience. I'm not so pessimistic as to think that we cannot go back in theaters with a full capacity soon,
I totally agree with you, Radu. There are these 2 options that are equally available. But I think what we must all agree upon is that we have changed. The idea of creating theatre has been tremendously influenced by all these cultural transformations, and also the perception of the spectator has changed as well. So even if we want desperately to go back to the same reality, however defined, that reality won't be the same, mainly because we are not the same anymore. And I'd like to invite you all, but mainly you, Radu, to try to think of one moment throughout this entire period that is already 1 year long, which is at once scary, sobering, and in a sense, hopeful, because it must come to an end. Things will have to be reinvented. I'd like to ask you to mention one episode that you really, really appreciated, that left an important mark on you, that made a very, very significant impact on you. It can be a show, it can be a conversation, it can be anything that relates to theatre one way or another. How about you, Radu? I know you watch a lot of movies. I know you are very familiar with everything that is happening online. And yet, as you said, you have created 4 different performances against all odds. What was that moment that really, really made you feel things are possible and things will go on no matter what?
I enjoyed the silence. I was very happy for the silence, I must confess. So I suppose my theater will be much more silent than before. I was at home, I was staying at home, but I worked a lot. I traveled inside me very much in this period, in this pandemics. Fortunately, I wasn't ill at all. So, but something was very, 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 very new in my life, the silence around me. And I suppose I will put that in all my next performances. The silence, the silence during the pandemics, it wasn't a bad silence for me. On the TV, they said on the news, it's a hard silence on the beach, on the Black Sea side. It's very sad because the beaches are empty. It's not good at all. I said it was very good for the nature, at least. So that silence for me, it's okay. But I suppose the ones who live in North in Swedish, they know that empty beaches. They know very well, and for us, this is so precious image. We don't have this chance here on the Black Sea to see the empty beaches during the summer, and I was very happy for that. I know it's egoistic, but in my theater, this will be the big change. I mean, not so much, not joy, not so much craziness, not so much noises, not so much. Maybe it's the age, I don't know, but 1 year it's something. But for me, will be the big change, I suppose, the silence. I don't think if I became much more clever, much more intelligent this year. No, I'm not sure. But certainly like everyone at the beginning, I was thinking and I believed that people will become better, people will become, they will understand the nature better. I was naive, I suppose, but I know about myself and my next theater, one thing, it will be much more silent. Right now I'm working at the project about death, so 3 Maurice Maeterlinck short pieces about the death, very sad, because the death was very close to us. Everything was very close to us, was around us this year, and people was afraid to talk about the death in a theater. If we don't talk about horror movies or something like that on Netflix, but in a theater, people wanted to see optimistic things much more and more. And no, we must talk about sad things because, from the other perspective, we should see the life from the perspective of the dead from now, because it's very important. If not us as artists, who else will show that to people?
So I gather that after Maeterlinck, it will be Beckett for you, Radu, because there's no other author in which death and silence appear more poignantly than in Beckett. That's something for you to consider, particularly because, as you've just said, you're not the same anymore. None of us is. Dasha, what about your most precious moment throughout this entire period?
I think it is that we actually see each other. I mean, in Sweden, we're like a cold country, and if you live in a small city, then you maybe see each other. But if you're living in Stockholm, you're not saying hello to people just in the street. And even if there's few people and there's distance, people started to see each other and actually saying hi, and I think that's really hopeful, and I'll bring that with me. I think maybe the whole culture, Swedish culture now, will be changed after this corona, that we're actually going to talk to each other on the streets. We meet in the winter time, minus degrees, with people meet with each other, and that's never happened before in that way, and I think that's really hopeful and really, really nice. So that's what I carry with me from this time.
That's a very touching message. People coming together and being together, because that's what life and theater are all about. And I'm sure Luiza has something to say about that from the perspective of somebody born in Romania, in a culture that has these vibes of the Latin spirit, and now living in Sweden. So Luiza, comment a little bit on that, and then tell us about that moment that to you personally meant more than any other one.
Yeah. Well, it was a cultural shock in the beginning, of course, when I first came to Sweden for 10 years ago. But I did come as a theater student, and I dare to say that theater people are more open to being warm with each other and try to find connections between people in another way. So I didn't feel that there was such a big difference between Romania and Sweden in the beginning. I did feel it when I came out in the real society, though. But after 10 years here, I've got used with it, and it usually takes me about 2 days in order to adapt to the country I'm in. When I come back to Romania in vacation or just to meet friends or work, I need 2 days in order to get adapted again to the very Romanian close and way of being. And then when I come back to Sweden, I need 2 days to adapt to the fact that people are not trying to be so close to me. But then...
what about that moment? I insist, I will not give up. What about that moment throughout this period that started about a year ago, that really restored your faith in theater and humanity in yourself, that really meant something to you at a profound level?
I'm sure there were many of them, but when you put the question, I thought about a moment I had for 2 weeks ago. And after a period of a year when you're not, we were not supposed to be close to each other, even in rehearsal situation. Right now at the theater, we have this rule that even in rehearsal situation, the actors are not supposed to be more than 2 meters close to each other. So we have to keep the distance all the time. And it's very hard to keep that rule as an actor because we are very physical. We do need to connect with our partners. And this performance we're doing now, it's a 2 character play. So it's just me and another actress. And we have been rehearsing for a month and a half from 2 meters distance, longing to get close to each other, longing to be close physically, but also it felt like our characters couldn't meet in the performance because we are playing 2 women that are best friends. And how can you play 2 best friends if you're not even allowed to be close to each other? And the theater has this rule that when you do want to be close to your partner on stage, you have to take a corona test in the morning. And if it's negative, you are allowed to rehearse close to each other. And we did that for 2 weeks ago after a month and a half of being apart. And the moment that we were negative, both of us, and the director said, you can just do whatever you want with the scenes now. Just improvise them and try to forget everything we've done for a month and a half and show me how we would do it now when you're allowed to be close to each other. And the whole day and the whole rehearsals just went to another level. It felt like we connected in a spiritual way, and in many moments of the rehearsals, we had tears in our eyes because we got much more sensitive to the approach between us 2. And that moment gave me faith that theater in its classical form will not die. It will not disappear. I do agree with Radu that we will go back to what we had before Corona. But I do believe that we should remember the things that we discovered under the pandemic, because it has had positive aspects also. We are able to connect with the audience in a different way. We have found ways of speaking with the young public in a different way that we didn't do before. And I do believe that a form of online theater would live forward and we will develop it. But I'm not worried that the theater in its classical form will disappear. So I answered 2 of your questions.
Yes, very good. 2 in 1. That's Romania and Sweden. Everything is double. Georgia, you know exactly what is expected of you right now.
Final conclusions.
That's too much a task, I think, but maybe just honesty with respect to that moment, one moment alone from this entire period.
You see, now listening to us, it's very interesting that we have this tendency of becoming more personal in a very short amount of time, and about sharing these very private and intimate moments at some point. And I think that maybe this period brought us about having this kind of courage of telling more, and about sharing this kind of emotions that we are all dealing with this. For me, it was a very rich period of time, and I would choose two moments. It was a moment Radu said about silence, and I would call it a calmness that I imposed myself about in January. It was 2 weeks when I didn't talk to much person. It was like a self-isolation, but without being sick or something. And it was this kind of reducing the engines, and just taking my routines around Lake Herăstrău, and just each evening going for around the lake, finding this way of going to myself, and that was very useful. And but regarding to something linked to the theater, I attended a prepaid show. It was in November. It was live streamed from Belfast. It was a production called To Be a Machine 1.0 with a single performance. So we had to pay a ticket to attend the show, and it was very interesting that yes, we had to pay there, and we had to be online to attend online to that show. But at some point, the performer asked, "Okay, so you bought tickets, but I don't know if you are there or not. Is anybody listening to me? Is everybody hearing me, watching me? And how can we deal with this?" And then it was with a lot of technology implied there. And at some point there, it was a chat room, a chat window opening on our windows, and he asked us to interact lively with him. And so we actually saw that who was online at the time, and that we actually could interact with him, and sending messages with him and among us, and so on, and react and so on. And I think that, it was emotional to see that, yes, it was a community there, spread around the world, but still in a way there. And yes, that was quite emotional for me.
Well, picking up on that, I can only say that I hope that Hektomeron will have many, many, many people connecting with one another, because they are connected with its program of 100 days, 100 different performances created by 100 directors. And I like to say that it's been a joy for me to be talking to you today about the scope and the meaning of this great cultural initiative, but also about your own perceptions of what is happening with theater right now in the world. So thank you very, very much, Dasha, Radu, Luiza, and George, for your honesty, for your openness, and for your emotions. And let us hope together that this will be not only a document of what is happening right now with humanity, with culture, but it will be that which conveys the most precious message of hope and of the triumph of the human spirit. Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for watching us. Thank you.
Thank you also.
Thank you.